Presentation of dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho.
Coming up, she was just a teenager when her lawsuit went all the way to the Supreme Court, and she won. A conversation with Mary Beth Tinker about her groundbreaking 1965 case considered a landmark in protecting the First Amendment rights of students. That's Dialogue next. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Marcia Franklin. In 1965, a group of students in Des Moines, Iowa decided to protest the Vietnam War by wearing black armbands to school. Administrators at their schools, though, got wind of the plan and quickly wrote a policy banning the wearing of armbands, saying they were disruptive. But some of the students went ahead with their protest and were suspended. 3 of them, John and Mary Beth Tinker and Christopher Eckhart, sued the school district for violating their First Amendment rights to free speech and expression. Lower courts held in favor of the school district, but in 1969, several years after the students wore their armbands, the United States Supreme Court, by a vote of 7-2, ruled that the students were within their constitutional rights and were not being disruptive. In a now famous line, Justice Abe Fortas wrote, "It can hardly be argued that either students or teachers shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate." The case is seen as a landmark in protecting students' rights to free speech, although over the years, the Supreme Court has gone on to approve exceptions to it. Now, my guest today was one of the students who sued. Mary Beth Tinker was just 13 years old when she wore the armband to school. Today, nearly 50 years later, she's traveling the country to talk about her case, as well as what she sees as current threats to students' rights. Her trip is dubbed the Tinker Tour. And Ms. Tinker is here to tell us more about it. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so good to be here in Idaho. Thank you, Marcia.
I understand this is your first trip here.
Yes, it is. First but not last.
Okay. And something like the 31st state that you've been to on this grand tour.
Yes, it's really been a whirlwind, and we've been having such a good time talking with students, teachers, people in the community, everyone about the issue of student speech and how young people can and are making a difference in our country and in our world.
And I should say that you're also asked to speak internationally about this. You literally just came off of a plane, in the last 12 hours from Brazil.
That was really amazing to be there with so many human rights activists for a program about society and how we can improve democracy by civil society organizations, and that includes young people as well.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about that later. You did do a TEDx talk, and that will be online. We'll link to that. But first, take us back to 1965. What was happening? What you and your brother and your family were concerned about at the time?
Well, it started when I was growing up in Iowa in a small town. I was one of the youngest of 6 children. I was very shy, and my father was a Methodist minister. And so in church, we would sing the usual songs like Jesus loves the little children. But then in town, not everybody seemed to love all the little children because the swimming pool down the street wouldn't let some children swim there, the black children. My father and some of the kids from the church went there to complain about that. And as a result, my father was put out of his church and we had to move. And so I grew up with that example of people speaking up and standing up for what they believed in, because my father wanted to put his views, his religious views, into action.
And the Vietnam War was pretty early on. I want to say maybe 1,000 people had died. RFK was calling for a Christmas truce. But even at the beginning of this war, you and your family were opposed to it.
By 1965, my family had become Quakers. My father was originally a Methodist minister, but he was put on assignment with the Quakers to work for the American Friends Service Committee. And so, of course, we talked about peace a lot because that's what the Quakers are all about. But then on TV, we saw images of the war, the burning huts, the soldiers lying on the ground in body bags, the children running from their huts screaming in terror. And it was very upsetting for all of us, especially for us kids. And so we decided that we should do something about it and we should speak up about it.
And a group of you met and decided to wear black armbands to school. The original black armband that you wore is in the museum in Washington, D.C., so we can't show it, but you have kind of a replica here that you carry with you and give out to students. You want to flip it around there, yeah. And so why did you choose the black armband as a symbol? Why did you want to wear those?
Well, there were a couple things. First of all, it's a symbol of mourning that goes back through history. And our message was that we were mourning the deaths on both sides of the war, which is one thing that made our little action more controversial. But also, a couple of years earlier in 1963, 4 little girls were killed in a church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama, when their church was bombed by the Ku Klux Klan. That year in Des Moines, Iowa, there was a memorial service for the little girls. And some people there wore black armbands, including the father of Chris Eckhart. We have some photos of that. And so maybe the idea got started back then.
But it was kind of you weren't going to be standing up in class and making pronouncements. You were going to go to class quietly with these black armbands on, and if anyone wanted to talk to you about why you were wearing them, you'd talk with them. Somehow, though, the school administrators got wind of this, and they were pretty nervous about it. And they, as I mentioned in my introduction, quickly passed a policy saying no wearing of armbands. And you knew this going in. You knew that you would be disciplined in some way. But you still, even though you were a shy girl, went ahead and wore it.
Yes, when the principals found out about our plan, because one of the boys wrote an article for the school newspaper about it, the principals got together and made a rule against the armbands. And then, of course, we had a real moral dilemma because we didn't want to break the rules, but yet we felt that kids should have rights too. And we were so sad about the war. We wanted to express ourselves about it. So, I kept going back and forth. I didn't know what to do. I was a good student. I had never been in trouble in the office. But then again, I had all these examples in my life of people who do speak up and stand up. And so eventually I just decided that it would be worth it to get suspended, even if I was suspended. And I think that's what the other students decided as well.
You went to school, the principal asked you to take it off. You actually did take it off, right?
Yes.
And your brother kept wearing it. But both of you were suspended along with Christopher, the boy you mentioned. Did you think at that time, okay, we're suspended, we made our statement. I know you wore black clothing for a lot of the rest of the year. Did you think that this was all done and over with?
We had no idea that this small action would lead to such a big consequence and that it would be such an important case all the way at the Supreme Court. We didn't even know that it was going to court when we wore our armbands. I mean, really, it might have been the end of the whole thing when several of us were suspended, except for a group called the American Civil Liberties Union, and they've been standing up for the Bill of Rights for almost 100 years, and they thought kids should have rights too. And so one of the women who was a member of the Iowa Civil Liberties Union made it her cause to get them to come and offer to help us, which they did.
So what happened when this then went out of the realm of the schools involved and became a lawsuit and you got press? Well, first of all, let me back up. What was the reaction of the students in the school when you came with the black armbands?
At my school, there wasn't that much reaction. I mean, my best friend Connie, that I went roller skating with on weekends, she just said, you're going to get in trouble and you better take that off. And I explained to her why I was wearing it, and slowly my confidence was getting stronger. And then some boys at lunch said, we want armbands for Christmas. They were just teasing me like they always teased us at the girls' table. So I just ignored them as usual. But at Chris's school and my brother's, they got more hassled, and someone punched one of the boys when he was out for lunch, and they had a lot more trouble at the high school. But I really didn't have much trouble at the junior high school. I was in 8th grade.
So now moving forward, there's a lawsuit. More people are hearing about this. What's some of the reaction that you started getting at that time? I think you brought some examples of it.
Well, yeah, the haters are always out there, as I tell the kids, and they know that too. But I mean, some people, really misunderstood. They thought that we were being unpatriotic, and we felt that we were being patriotic towards our Constitution and our right to express ourselves. So some people sent us postcards like this postcard, and and they would call us communists, and they threw red.
It has a
sickle,
hammer and sickle on it, like you're communists.
Saying that we were communists. They threw red paint at our house. Someone threatened to bomb our house on Christmas Eve. A lady called and told me, "I'm going to kill you." And my parents just stayed brave and strong. I really have to hand it to them, because my dad didn't want us to wear the armbands, especially at first, but we were able to convince him.
Oh, is that right? He didn't want you to wear them.
No, because it was against the rules. But then,
okay.
Kids are so persuasive, so we persuaded. We said, "Dad, look how you stand up for what you believe in." And so they stayed strong, and they stayed behind us, and they would say, "We're not communists, we're Methodists." And we would pray. They would pray with us prayers like, "Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love." And they showed us the way to be loving, even in the face of this kind of hate.
You also received letters, and you brought one with you. People even signed these letters. These were not anonymous. They wanted you to know who they were.
I know. Here's one that was signed by James, and he said, "The Tinkers, you haven't won anything except the scorn of good Americans. A most disgusting family. Your picture is enough to make me vomit." Which, I mean, I have to say middle school kids do get a big kick out of this letter. I think it's the vomit. Now, I'm a nurse now, and I work with kids, and so,
but that's got to be painful when your parents are
Yeah.
receiving things like this. I don't know, did
Definitely.
you see these type of letters when you were young, or did they show them to you later?
Yes, I did. There was
Okay.
one postcard that we got that just had a Minutemen, and they're still around. And so they have a statue of the Minutemen on one side, and you flip it over, and there's just a rifle crosshairs on the other side. So yes.
Were you scared?
Yes, yes, I was. It was the first time I realized that there were these hateful people out there that were after us personally. I already knew that they were in life because I knew about the civil rights movement. I knew about the Birmingham, Alabama bombing, and my parents had been to Mississippi to stand up for Mississippi Freedom Summer that summer to help people register to vote. So I knew that, you know, people get shot at for standing up for democracy, but it had never really affected me so directly before.
So you lost in two lower court rulings, and then this went to the United States Supreme Court. So I assume the ACLU was the entity that kept persevering in this. Did you go to the argument?
Yes, I did. It was really amazing because we lost at the district level, we lost at the appeals level. And I mean, these boys were about to be drafted that wore the armbands and sent maybe to Vietnam to be injured or killed, but the court said at the district and appeals level that they can't wear a little piece of black cloth on their arm saying how they felt about the war. So
what were your thoughts as you sat there in that Supreme Court listening to the argument about a case that is about you?
It was just amazing to be at the Supreme Court. I mean, we had no idea that this was all going to happen, and it just slowly unfolded as the war kept escalating, and that was the sad part, that the war kept building up. But yes, being at the Supreme Court, I mean, just being there in that amazing scene there, that's so beautiful at the Supreme Court.
And then, as I mentioned, 1969 was when the decision was handed down for almost 4 years after your protest. And you won. Did you have a sense of the gravitas of it at the time when you were, what would it have been, 17 years old or something?
I was 16, a junior in high school when the Supreme Court ruled that we won the case. It was a great victory, not just for us, but for students all over the country in public schools, and also for teachers. Because as it turns out, the rights of teachers and the rights of students go together in history. When it's a good time for students' rights, it's usually a good time for teachers' rights too, and the reverse is true. So yes, it was a huge victory. I couldn't believe it.
Did you celebrate?
I saw a letter from my mom to my dad. He was out of town, and she said, "Honey, we won the case, and we celebrated with ice cream and soda pop, and it was a great night." But I had no idea how important of a case it was still.
Well, and the ruling, and we'll link to it, said essentially that it was a passive protest. You were not disrupting the class setting, and that you don't check your rights at the door when you're a student or a teacher, as I mentioned in the introduction. Over the years, though, this decision has been chipped away at. There have been several prominent lawsuits that have come to the Supreme Court: Bethel, Hazelwood, Morse, all with different case studies. But essentially, the court has ruled more and more that schools have the right to preserve order and make certain rules. You can't make lewd comments in a school assembly. School papers can be censored. And the most recent one, the person who held up the sign that said "Bong hits for Jesus," that was considered to be promoting illegal drug use. So do you see that the Tinker decision, the one that carries your name, is being chipped away?
Yes, the rights of students have been chipped away since the ruling in our case. That was considered a high water mark for student speech and also really for teachers' rights also. Those cases that came later, all ACLU cases actually, did chip away at the rights of students. But it's been a mixed situation also because, for example, the Hazelwood case that had to do with school-sponsored speech, about 7 states have passed laws in their legislators saying, no, we're going to go by the Tinker standard.
And that's the one that allowed a school to censor a newspaper that the person wanted to write about teen pregnancy.
Teen pregnancy, divorce. Runaways.
So you're saying some states have taken it upon themselves to say, no, we think that students should be allowed to go ahead and not be censored.
Yes. In our case, the only 2 exceptions for speech were to be if the speech substantially disrupts the school or if the speech impinges on the rights of others. So it's really a better standard for students. It gives them more leeway for speech.
Now, you went on to become a nurse, as you mentioned,
Yes.
and a mother. And so did you ever have the situation where you looked at your child going to school or carrying something to school and saying, you can't do that?
Well, yeah, it did come back around when my son was a teenager and he wanted to wear a shirt that had a nurse on it that I didn't think was very appropriate for school, especially the way she was dressed. And so I said, you go back in your room and take that shirt off. You're not wearing that to school. And he said, oh, Miss First Amendment. But I said, this is different. I'm your parent.
Well,
I'm not your principal. But I do think there should be limits, of course. But I just think that the students should have some say in their schools over the policies of their schools and what the limits should be. I think should be up to students too. They should be involved in these decisions.
And I was remiss in not explaining the pin that you're wearing, which is Justice Thurgood Marshall. Yes. Why do you wear that?
Yes, well, Thurgood Marshall is one of my heroes, and he was on the Supreme Court when the decision came through in the Tinker ruling, and his wife gave me a pin with his picture on it, and so he was a great friend of students and wanted students to have their rights, so I like to take that message into the schools.
Let's talk about the Tinker Tour. Let's talk about why you, who have a career as a nurse, decided to, you never really left this realm because you've been interviewed many times and there are awards named after you, so you continue to stay involved. But why did you want to jump both feet in again in this issue and go on a nationwide tour?
As a nurse working with children and teenagers, I came to see that the ruling in our case is part of a human rights issue that's actually international around the world, where children and teenagers have been speaking up and standing up, and all through history, and are again today. But I dealt with so many kids that have no rights and whose rights are being infringed on, and they end up in my hospital, in my clinic. And I just thought, kids don't have a very good deal in our society right now. It's not set up for the well-being of children and teenagers to be a top priority. For example, of all age groups, there are more children living in poverty. They have more tendency to live in poverty. And so I thought, these kids really need to start standing up for themselves. And maybe if I can share the story of not only our case, but also so many other examples through history, and there are so many that I can choose from, then that will encourage kids to stand up for their rights.
Well, you, in fact, are in a book of 101 change makers, right? Along with people like Martin Luther King. So you're saying you don't necessarily talk to them only about free speech issues, but just about pick an issue and know that you have some power to make a change.
Exactly. Just speak up and stand up. It's a good way of life to use our First Amendment, and we talk about the First Amendment and how you can use it in your life, in your schools, and of course to use it with respect. We want to have a world that's better, that doesn't have more hate, but that has less hate in it. So use these rights with respect.
Where do you see the threats coming from to students, either First Amendment rights? What are some of the things that concern you these days?
I think there's a concern of the climate in schools generally, and teachers share these concerns as well as we travel around the country. First of all, the No Child Left Behind has been difficult because with so many standardized tests and the emphasis on standardized tests, there isn't as much time and attention given to civics education, for example, and I've done a lot of work with the National Council for the Social Studies and groups like that. So civics education is at a real low point, and that's not good for the First Amendment and for our citizens to know about the basic foundations of democracy. So that's a huge issue. And the other big issue, I think, is the inequality in our country, in the schools, just the economic inequality. As we go to the poor schools, those kids have less rights. They probably don't have a journalism program, so they won't be expressing themselves in that way. And a lot of times there'll be metal detectors, uniforms, kids will be suspended a lot more often.
Well, let me ask you, too, I know that there's some cases making their way through the system that have to do with our new technology and
Yes.
the digital arena. There's concern about students blogging or texting negative comments about their school. Is that part of what's being looked at?
Yes, some are negative comments and some are positive comments. For example, some kids in New York, they wanted to have a debate with the school board candidates, and they wanted to do it on a Google chat using social media. But the administrator didn't think it was a good idea because he said it could cause trouble. Maybe one candidate would be favored, or the student. So it's not always just negative things that kids are saying about their schools or about their friends or things like that. There are other things that are being censored as well. Even when kids just want to have some input into the policies of their lives and who will be representing them on the school board.
What about school uniforms? That's always confused me a little bit. So how is that a freedom of expression issue? If a student goes to school and says, well, I don't want to wear the uniform. I want to wear what I want to wear.
I think it's a freedom of expression issue, uniforms, and it's also an issue of agency. Do kids have a say in their schools about the policies that govern their schools? So should they have a say about what the dress code is or the uniforms at all? And I think that they should. The courts have upheld uniform policies generally, but I think the
same thing is again, the schools have a right to set certain limits.
The courts have ruled, as far as uniforms, that the schools have a right to have a say about uniforms. But there's a lot of evidence that the more democratic the school is and the more student input, the better the students will do, the better the outcomes are. So I say, make the schools more democratic. It's good for students and it's good for our democracy.
We're rapidly running out of time, but tell me what the experience of going around the country has been like for you. Any things that stand out, any experiences?
It's just been a wonderful year traveling all around the country, speaking with students, speaking with people about these issues. For example, I'll tell you about a school in Queens where we spoke, and then a couple days later I got a text from a girl saying, Miss Mary Beth, we're standing up, we're speaking up because our phys ed classes were cut and our AP classes were cut. So we decided to call some reporters, and we've been talking to our teachers, and we're standing up and speaking up about that. There are kids in Wisconsin that wrote to us recently about how they're standing up about a controversial article that they want to put into their newspaper about how the word rape is used and not used. And part of our tour is focused on journalism, student journalism. And that's
something I care very much about.
That has been wonderful because it's such an interesting time, an important time for journalism, and so many kids are involved. Yes, the Student Press Law Center is helping to support our project. We're a special project of the Student Press Law Center, and so we've met so many student journalists, and it's just been great.
And there's book banning issues as well. Is that something that concerns you?
Book banning is a huge issue also. There was a high school here in Idaho recently that banned a book. I think it's called The Amazing True Story of an American Indian. I can't remember.
Sherman Alexie book, in the Meridian School District.
Yes, exactly.
They took it off the ancillary reading list.
Exactly. So yes, book banning. Tucson, Arizona, where they eliminated the ethnic studies program in the high school. which a lot of kids were really getting excited about school because of that program. Unfortunately, they just eliminated it along with 5 of the books that they were using to study Chicano history. So book banning is an issue in the schools. And again, I think the kids should have some say about the books in their education.
Is this a liberal issue or conservative issue?
It's not a liberal. It crosses liberal and conservative. Justice Alito, for example, hosted us at the Supreme Court recently when we were there talking for a program about the Tinker plaintiffs. And I asked him, would you still stand up for the Tinker standard, because he had said he would in his Senate confirmation hearings. And he said, yes, I would. There was a girl in New Jersey who wore a red armband to protest abortion. And she was suspended, and it was an ACLU case. They went to court to stand up for her right to wear her red armband, and of course she won in the end.
And is your brother still involved, by the way?
My brother John is still involved. He speaks up and talks to students quite a bit also about these issues.
And the other plaintiff has passed away.
Chris Eckhart died last year, sadly.
And Brazil, as we wrap up, what was that like? Was a TEDx talk? What was the theme of your talk?
I was in Sao Paulo with other human rights activists around the world, and it was just so amazing to be with people like Kasha, who's an LGBT activist, for example, in Uganda, where it's illegal there. And she was telling us about how she has to move very often because it's very dangerous for her there. And just so many other people, young people.
A lot of issues are global now, or they're coming together
Yes.
because of the technology.
Yes.
Well, we'll link to that. And finally, as we close, what's next for you?
What's next? Well, I'm not working at my hospital anymore. I've decided that with whatever time I have left on earth, I'm just going to talk to students and encourage them to speak up about the things they care about. We were concerned about the war. We were sad about war. Now, young people have their issues that they want to speak up about. Sometimes it is war, but sometimes it's the environment or bullying or human rights, animal rights, gender issues, and so many other things. So I just want to encourage young people to use your rights, keep them alive, and stand up and speak up and be part of democracy and make a difference.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your tour to come here and talk about it. You have been listening to Mary Beth Tinker. She was a plaintiff when she was only 13 years old in 1965 when she sued for the right to express her opinion about the Vietnam War at school. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in her favor, and the case is considered a landmark for First Amendment rights. To learn more about the case, as well as Ms. Tinker's tour, please check out the Dialogue website. Just go to idahoptv.org and click on Dialogue. For Dialogue, I'm Marcia Franklin. Thanks for tuning in.
Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho. Check out our website, become a friend on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter.